Hello there, everyone. As promised, today is December the 24th. We're starting one more live stream, and I hope I'm going to get some participants over here so we can discuss topics of your interest. I'm also going to address taxation in general. This is a recurring topic here at the firm. And I believe that the vast majority of foreign citizens, they don't have a good understanding of how taxation works in Brazil. And therefore, this is going to be today's topic. If you have other questions, feel free to ask. But unless I have a topic of a participant, that's what I'm going to be discussing today. This is going to be a short live stream. It's going to be a 1 hour short 1 hour live stream, and we're starting now. So if you have questions, don't be shy. Ask your questions, and we're going to discuss the matching subjects here in our live stream. So first question I have here in my notes related to tax. What determines tax residency in Brazil? So, based on the consultations we have with foreign citizens, we see that there are different interpretations of tax residency and most of all, a lot of misunderstanding. But the let's say the rule to determine if you are a tax resident or not, it's pretty much straightforward, or I would say they are simple basic concepts, but the application is not as straightforward as we wish. Just like everything else in Brazil, there are complexities, and particularly in taxation, that's not an exception. But let's get to the two ways that a person is going to become or is going to be considered a tax resident in Brazil. The first one, which I think it's pretty easy to understand, it's when you become a legal resident in Brazil, right? So, of course, Brazil doesn't expect you or doesn't require you to apply to be a tax resident, right? If people had this option, I'm sure everybody would decline to be a tax resident in Brazil, particularly if they are already paying taxes in, let's say, in their country of origin, right? So if people had the option, they would avoid additional tax complications. But there is no such a thing as a choice. As soon as you become a legal resident in Brazil, you are also a tax resident. Now, when do you become a tax resident in Brazil? I'm going to give you two examples, right? One example is, there is a couple in which one of the spouses is a Brazilian and the other one is a foreign citizen. And this couple decides to stay some time in Brazil. They say, you know what, let's try Brazil. We are both working remotely. Let's, rent an apartment, maybe in Florianopolis, maybe in Rio de Janeiro, maybe in the northeast of Brazil, in Fortaleza. And they initially think about staying for 3 months, right? So they go, let's say, to Fortaleza, they rent an apartment, they are in this apartment for 3 months, and then they say, well, this is working pretty well, right? Like we earn in US dollars or in euros, and now we are spending in Brazilian reais, so we are able to do more stuff with our income. People here, they love us, like we have a really good time. We are enjoying, visiting new places. Why don't we stay here for a couple of years? And it's usually at that point that this couple, a Brazilian citizen and a foreign citizen, they are going to decide to apply for residency for the foreign citizen spouse. And of course, the Brazilian spouse is going to be the one sponsoring the foreign citizen. And because Brazil really has family ties as one of the top reasons to give someone residency in Brazil. Like in a Latin culture, a family it's regarded as one of the most important things in someone's life, and therefore they are going to allow this person to real quickly become a Brazilian resident. And by allowing this first citizen to become a legal resident, the first citizen could stay virtually forever in Brazil, right? So if this foreign citizen does not acquire the residency, in theory, they would need to leave the country in just 90 days. We know that there is a possibility of applying for an additional 90 days, but that would mean 180 days. And if they want to stay a couple of years, they need to apply for some sort of immigration benefit. And because they're married, and usually people have this understanding. All right, if I'm married to a national, I will probably be able to stay in the country. They just go directly into the legal residency approach. And guess what? Like a couple of months down the road, maybe 3 months down the road, the foreign citizen is going to be a legal resident in Brazil. And here is what happens. Like as soon as this person attends the interview with the Polícia Federal, with the federal police, and get their RNM number, which is the number of registration for foreign citizens in Brazil, this person is considered both a legal resident, but not only that, this person is also going to be a tax resident in Brazil. Starting on that day, right? That's one of the interpretations. There is a second one that this person would actually be a tax resident from the day they entered, from the day the foreign citizen entered into Brazil. Okay, and people sometimes they are confused. They say, yeah, but I heard about the 183 days rule, which is the second one we're going to address over here. But again, let me remind you, as soon as you become a legal tax resident, there is no amount of time that you need to be in Brazil. You are immediately a legal tax resident in Brazil. Okay, so that's the first rule, and it's somewhat clear cut because you become you become a legal resident, and as a consequence, you are also a tax resident, right? Now let's talk about the second rule. The second rule is it does not matter the purpose that you are coming to Brazil. Once you cross the 183 days threshold, you are going to be a tax resident, right? And just to highlight that there is no to inquire into the reason why this foreign citizen is in Brazil, even if this person is illegally in Brazil, this person is going to be a tax resident once this person crosses the 183 days. Okay. Another example, people who come to Brazil to study, maybe they are going to be studying Portuguese, maybe they are going to try to, get a master's degree or something. That's the same concept. Like they're not coming into the country to make money, to handle any business transactions, and it does not matter. Like once they've been in the country for 183 days, right? Next day, when they are 184 days in the country, they are tax residents in the country. Okay, and again, you don't need to choose anything. You don't need to file anything. That's that's going to automatically trigger your new tax status. Okay, so there is no choice, there is no choosing. This is something that happens automatically. Um, so also in terms of a distinction between tax residents and non-tax residents. because you may think, all right, so if I just stay for 183 days in the country, right? Like, I mean, I am on day 183. I'm basically taking a flight and I'm going to go away and then I don't have any tax obligations. Is that right? No, that's wrong, right? If you leave like on your 183-day mark, you're not going to be a tax resident. That's true. But you're still going to have like obligations, tax obligations, even as a non-tax resident. And the way it works is like this. If you have rentals, right? If you bought a property in Rio de Janeiro and you're renting like 4,000 reais a month, right? In a year, you're going to be making 48,000 reais, which is going to be roughly like 10 US dollars, 10,000 US dollars a year. And guess what? You're going to need to pay income tax, right? So just because you're not a tax resident, it doesn't mean that you are free from taxes. It just means that the level of obligations is going to be substantially lower, right? Non-tax resident, 183 days in the country, and you're not a legal resident, right? So if you're just 183 days or less, and you don't have a legal residency in the country, that means you are non-tax resident, and most probably than not, you're just gonna pay taxes on income that you receive in Brazil, right? So income in Brazil, nobody's gonna inquiry, nobody's gonna ask what is your tax residency status. You're gonna be taxed anyhow, okay? And if you happen to be a tax resident, then of course you're gonna pay the same taxes that a non-tax resident would pay and more, right? The main distinction between a non-tax resident and a tax resident is going to be that the tax resident is going to pay tax on their global income. Yes, Brazil, from a encompassing approach, is going to be just like the United States. If you are a U.S. citizen, they don't care where your income is; they are going to tax you, right? Brazil, Brazil has pretty much the same approach. So if you are, let's say, a British citizen, uh, legally residing in Brazil, and you have income in the UK, and you have income in the US, and you have income in Brazil, then you're gonna have to pay income tax on your income from the UK, on your income from the US, and on your income from Brazil. Now, it's not just like bad news, even though Brazil is traditionally recognized, for its like bureaucracy and excessive red tape. There is some level of common sense when it comes to taxes, because Brazil is going to try to apply credits for whatever taxes you are paying abroad. Okay, so that's I would say it's probably the best news I have when it comes to taxes in Brazil, which means that if you are paying taxes abroad, Brazil is going to consider those taxes being paid to potentially offset the taxes that you have to pay in Brazil, right? And why is that such a good news? Well, it's such a good news because Brazil's tax brackets, they are substantially lower, particularly when compared to what you see in Europe, for instance, right? Like some countries in Europe, they have like what, from a Brazilian's perspective, is gonna be considered like crazy tax brackets, like 50, 55, or even 60% tax bracket on personal income, right? And in Brazil, our highest bracket is just 27.5%. Okay, so that means if you're paying 40% taxes a 40% tax bracket, let's say in Denmark or in Finland or in Norway, you're probably gonna be fine for a specific type of tax, right? Like let's say employment tax. And now something interesting for you to consider is that Brazil is not going to exceed this credit outside of the particular type of tax that is being credited against. So if we are talking about employment tax, let's say if you pay 50% in Norway and you would pay 27.5% in Brazil, you're probably not going to pay any additional tax at all in Brazil for the employment piece of your income. Okay. Now, if you have, for instance, financial income, if you have like a rental income, this credit that you're getting for the employment piece of your income is not going to be applied elsewhere, right? They are going to have like a compartmentalization approach, meaning that credits for a specific type of taxes they are going to be applied for the same tax in Brazil and not to other taxes, right? Otherwise, most probably than not, people would not pay any tax at all in Brazil. And of course, that's not the desire of the Brazilian tax authority. The Brazilian tax authority wants to have some level of taxation applied on foreign citizens, but they want to find this kind of nuance, balance. They want you to pay some level of taxes, but they don't want you to pay, double taxes, and they don't want you to pay zero taxes at all. So, what we are going over here at our live stream is like this general dynamics of the taxation. But most probably than not, if it's going to be your first time filing taxes in Brazil, or if you've been filing incorrectly, which we know to be often the case, then the initial step is for you to get a review of your taxation. We do here at the firm. We usually ask for your tax returns from abroad, if you have them, and from Brazil, if you filed something in the past, and then we're going to do a compare, and we're going to let you know the best tax filing approach possible given your specifics. I hope it helps. We have here Amhad Islam. Welcome, Amhad. I hope you're doing well. How much need minimum investment to settle in Brazil? I'm a Pakistani citizen. Please give the office contact. Also explain easy way. Okay. So you probably want to know if you want to invest, stay in Brazil, probably acquire the residency truth investment. What would be your options, right? And you want to know what would be the easiest way possible. Okay, so our office contact, Amhad, like if you go to our website, right, and our website matches our trade name. Our trade name is Oliveira Lawyers. So you just go to oliveiralawyers.com to the contact or about us page. You're going to see how to contact us. You would need to schedule an appointment to discuss your specific situation, right? Heads up that in Brazil, it's illegal for attorneys to give free advisory. They don't have such option. So we don't answer questions by email, and it's kind of common for people to get upset, like they think we should be available to answer questions for free. I don't think it makes much sense, but it is what it is. And then every single time that people ask for free advisory, we basically say, listen, this is illegal, right? And we are lawyers. We need to abide by the laws. We're not going to provide free advisory. And the same thing with questions, right? Like sometimes they say, well, it's not a consultation. It's just like answering questions. Answering questions is the same thing as a consultation. The only difference is that it's not live consultation, but if you're answering questions, it's still a consultation. To make this thing even worse from a law firm perspective, if we provide answers outside of the scope of a consultation, right, have issues with our insurance. Now, a live stream is different because everybody hears what you're saying, so there is zero expectation that you are in a consultation. So the Brazilian bar is not going to think we are giving free consultation. And the insurance company also understands this is basically just a way to promote our services, and we have no problems with that. The bar association doesn't have a problem. The insurance entity doesn't have a problem. So our live streams are fine. Like if you have a question, we don't mind addressing the topic behind that question. But we cannot answer questions by email, right? So you need to hire us. You need to pay for a consultation, and then we're going to address your specific situation. But going back, Amhad, like you are here in our live stream, so I'm going to be happy to address your topics. And the first one is the two main tracks for you to acquire residency in Brazil through investment are going to be buying real estate property or investing in a company. Okay, these are the two main tracks. That's what we like to call as immigration attorneys buying your residency in Brazil, right? Like a very straightforward concept, like you buying your residency, basically, right? You have a pile of cash. You have a pile of cash here, and you're putting on the table, and the Brazilian government is going to give you residency, right? Now, some distinctions. If you're going to buy a property nowadays, if you're buying the northeast of Brazil, this is going to be 700,000 reais, okay, which is roughly 130, 140 US dollars. If you're buying in Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and most of the country, actually is going to be a minimum of 1 million reais. And the 1 million reais, roughly like 200,000 US dollars. So if you buy the real estate, it got to be bought in a very specific way. We see a lot of people, I don't know why they do that. They try to do that by themselves, and guess what? They mess up with the documents, they mess up with the transfer, and after spending a huge amount of money and time, right? They still don't get the residency because they were cheap. They didn't want to, to hire someone to advise, and then that's what they get, right? Like they get a denial later on, and then they need to redo everything, right? So, but that's the real estate route. There is a second route, which is the investment in a company. And the most common investment in a company route is going to be like 500,000 reais, right? Roughly 100,000 US dollars. We do not usually recommend that route, particularly for foreign citizens coming from developed countries, because like if you are from the US, in the US you can open a new company in basically a couple of hours, right? I'm not kidding. Like there are services, you pay like an expedited fee, and they're gonna form your entity in 2 hours, okay? And for Brazil, particularly if you are a foreign citizen, like if you have a paperwork that needs to be translated, legalized abroad, it's super common for a person to take like 4, 5, or even 6 months to start a business entity in Brazil. And this is just a heads up of how your life as a business owner is going to be in Brazil, right? So for someone coming from a country like the US, I think the best word is like your life as a business owner in Brazil is going to be miserable, because you're going to face a degree of bureaucracy and red tape and inefficiency that's going to be, just like a downer, right? Like, I mean, it's going to be a pain in the neck, and it makes zero sense. Now, if you're coming from a developing country, that's going to be something else, right? Like if you're coming from a country where things work similarly or, work not as well as they work in the US, then maybe you're not going to see such huge differences in terms of how much pain you're going to feel to handle your business, okay? And then that could make more sense. And then you just need like 100,000 US dollars. You start a business or you invest in an existing business. We also like to tell, or as a heads up, that there are some strings attached, some strings attached. You may need to create a number of work positions. These work positions, of course, they need to be formal, meaning that you're going to be paying a bunch of taxes for every single employee. And to make things even more challenging, unfortunately, in Brazil, there is a culture of fake, bogus labor lawsuits. Okay, I have some friends from my college. I went to the University of São Paulo, which is recognized as the number one law school in Brazil. And even over there, like there is a bunch of friends of mine, they ended up specializing in labor law. So, they make their living from labor lawsuits, right? So if they hear this kind of discourse that I'm sharing over here, that there is a bunch of fake and bogus labor lawsuits, they get upset because it's like I am attacking their practice, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is not to attack anyone or to say bad things about Brazil. My only purpose is to give you a heads up that there is a substantial number of bogus and fake labor lawsuits. So even if you are handling your company, correctly, following every single law, guess what? 6 months down the road, there is a possibility that one of your employees is going to sue you just to make some extra money. Okay, it is what it is. But so I told you, Amhad, about two different tracks, right? And now you saying explain easy way. So I guess the easy way, you want to know what we would recommend if we were in your shoes, right? That's my reading on the easy way. I would say, the easy way, as long as you have the money, the real estate track, it's cleaner, it's easier, and you're not gonna have to handle, a business. You're not gonna need to entertain, like a bunch of taxation on the business entity, on the labor that you're gonna be hiring. You're not gonna face, this need to keep these work positions, to deal with, the bogus, the fake lawsuits, and so on. So that's always our main recommendation. Okay. Some people they also ask me, all right, but you're not talking about the marriage-based residency in Brazil. Why are you not mentioning that? And then I have a joke. Of course, it's a joke, but I'm gonna answer. Listen, the marriage-based residency in Brazil is by far the most expensive and most troublesome track. But again, that's a joke, right? Because marriage is something like extremely serious. So you're not going to be marrying a Brazilian just for the sake of securing residency, right? But if you're just talking about easiness and cost, like marriage with a Brazilian, of course, would be the fastest, the easiest, and again, at least from the immigration procedure itself, the less expensive. But what about the entire entanglement that you're going to be in, right? So I would tell you, to think, twice or maybe four times or maybe even 10 times. Marriage is not like, a short period of time, even if you're planning, you say, what, like I'm going to marry, secure this benefit, and I decided later on what to do. Usually, the consequences of a marriage in Brazil they are longer lasting. The legal system in Brazil it's really 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 slow, so it's not uncommon for lawsuits to take several years to guess what? You're going to be paying an attorney, to handle your lawsuit. In Brazil, there is no such a thing as, pay on a contingency basis, like, oh, you save so much and then I'm going to pay you. Or if you achieve that goal, I'm going to pay. There's nothing like this in Brazil, right? There are some countries like in the US, which the contingency basis, it's pretty, but not for Brazil. For Brazil, you got to put a pile of money in the front of the lawyer for them to work. Otherwise, they're not going to do your lawsuit, okay? You're going to be chasing attorneys, and whenever someone says yes, it's just going to be a bait and switch. They're going to tell you that they're going to work with a contingency. 1 month down the road, something happened that they didn't know about, and then you're going to need to pay money, right? So just be aware of that. All right, Amhad. So I hope that helps. If you have follow up points to be discussed, feel free, to ask. All right, we have a Captain Synth, the vendor. Hi, Mr. Oliveira. I'm interested in buying apartment in Rio de Janeiro. Yes, Rio de Janeiro is a super hot real estate market in Brazil. Brazil is a huge country with continental dimensions. There are many other hot markets. There is Fortaleza, Ceará state as a whole, Salvador, super traditional here at the firm. Every month we have a new transaction in Salvador. Rio de Janeiro, every month we have a multiple transactions in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, that's probably our number one market in Brazil. And if in Captain Synth for properties in Rio de Janeiro, I'm sure you're gonna be finding properties. Okay, and like just pay attention to your budget. Like Rio de Janeiro has some particular dynamics when it comes to pricing. If you're buying beachfront properties, they are going to be crazy expensive, as you would imagine. Now, if you want something more reasonable, usually you can find, it's not going to be, of course, a beachfront property, but even like for good neighborhoods or famous neighborhoods, from a perspective, for instance, Copacabana. Copacabana is not expensive, right? Some people, they think that Copacabana, Leblon, Ipanema, they are all the same, but they are not. Like Copacabana is much cheaper than Leblon and Ipanema. They're much cheaper. And the main reason is because there is a subway station in Copacabana. Okay, so there is a bunch of people from the communities, right? Like people from the poor areas of Rio de Janeiro, they go to Copacabana, and there is a bunch of people coming from these poor areas in Copacabana Beach, all over the place. So that's gonna, drag the price, the average price down substantially. You don't have such a thing in Leblon, for instance, which is probably the most expensive part of Rio de Janeiro. If you have a beachfront property in Leblon, it's not rare for you to have something that's going to be 5 million reais, 10 million reais, 20 million reais, right? But that's Leblon, that's not Copacabana. But listen, we meet very often. They say, listen, I don't like Leblon, Ipanema, like you just see those, like really rich individuals, walk around, like in a very, I don't know, like they're not as fun as people would be like in Copacabana, because there is a healthier a mix of individuals, right? Like, so you still have rich people in Copacabana, but then you have like middle class, and then you have like poor people. But at the end of the day, they are all like mingling together and enjoying life, right? So there is this very special vibe about Copacabana. Price is great. Like if you buy an apartment a few blocks from the beach, you're gonna get a really good price. So Copacabana is a pretty good choice for foreign citizens who wanna be like in the center of Rio de Janeiro's action without paying like crazy, like prices like you would in Leblon, for instance. Okay, Captain Singh. All right, he's complimenting. I'm a digital nomad traveling around the world and planning to make my base in Rio de Janeiro. All right, Captain Singh. Yeah, again, we love Rio de Janeiro. That's where we have most of our transactions. Um, and to consider traveling to the northeast of Brazil, uh, there is this kind of recurring situation. Like the person goes to Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is just amazing, right? Like I mean, there is not much that I don't like in Rio de Janeiro. Although there are challenges, particularly, the activity like druggy cartels and some random acts of violence every now and then. But Rio de Janeiro is undeniable, right? Like the city is amazing, is super beautiful, and it's really hard to beat Rio de Janeiro. This said, we see a number of foreign citizens that when they travel to the northeast of Brazil, and they are going to go to areas like Salvador, which is in the state of Bahia, Recife. There is a bunch of beaches around Recife, which is the capital of Pernambuco. You have Fortaleza, which nowadays, Fortaleza is a major staple for Europeans. It has been a staple for Europeans for 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years. And nowadays, US citizens are discovering Fortaleza, right? So 10 years ago, I would go to Fortaleza, Ceará, and if I would see a single American citizen, it would be like the event of my trip. Nowadays, almost every single trip that I have to the area, I'm gonna see a U.S. citizen. Europeans remain the majority of foreign citizens, but like I said, U.S. citizens they are discovering a Fortaleza. Okay, so that's a tip for Captain Synth, maybe to make sure that you know the northeast of Brazil before pulling the trigger in Rio de Janeiro. One additional advantage is like if you're gonna secure your residency through the purchase of real estate in the northeast of Brazil, it's gonna require you just 700,000 Brazilian reais, and Rio de Janeiro is gonna be 1 million 1 million reais, right? So it's about a 30% difference in terms of requirement. And it's not just that, okay? Like with 700, or let's say with 1 million reais, think about the example I gave you, like in Fortaleza, oh, sorry, in Copacabana. 1 million reais is not going to get you much in Copacabana, right? It's going to be like 3 to 4 or maybe 5 blocks from the beach, and it's going to be a small apartment. That's what you're going to get for 1 million reais in Rio de Janeiro. Now, guess what? With 700,000, you're probably going to get something bigger and closer to the beach in the northeast of the country, right? So you're spending 30% less and you're getting more bang for your bucks, okay? So that's, to wrap up this tip on the northeast of Brazil. All right, Jason Harris. Would it be less complicated being an apartment versus a house? And to check the process, be less, taking this into account. I forgot how much you charge. That's a good point, Jason. Actually, whenever we have a prospective buyer of a house, we try to dissuade the person because it's simply not a good arrangement for foreign citizens, given that one of the challenges we have in Brazil is like the violence, the risk of being robbed, right? So, listen, even for Brazilians, right? Like even for Brazilians, many Brazilians they are going to choose to live in a gated community, and buildings by its nature in Brazil, 100% of them they are going to be gated, right? I know that in the U.S., like it's super common for some buildings to have zero doormans, zero security. Basically, people are just gonna come in and take an elevator. There is no such a thing in Brazil. In Brazil, it's super common. Like if you're living in an apartment complex, for you to have like 20, 30 employees just for the building, right? So these people they're not just like mowing the law. They're doing every single thing you can think of, but very important, they are going to be taking care of your safety, right? So that's why there is such a huge number of people working in Brazil. I'm going to give an example, right? Like last week, we were buying, like end of year gifts for the building staff for our office in Rio de Janeiro. Our office in Rio de Janeiro is in downtown Avenida Rio Branco, 123, Suite 1912. And then I was reviewing the list with Patrick Moret. Patrick is our manager in the Rio de Janeiro office. And there was a list of 22 people to receive a gift, just for the building, right? And then I was taking a look, and I saw that just like for the fire brigade in the building, there were 8 people, right? So it is a huge building, but I mean, I'm just highlighting all the, say, all the help that you have when you are in a building, from a convenience and safety perspective. Okay, Jason. So if you buy a house, let me give another example. We had a transaction that was concluded last week. This couple from the U.S., they bought a beach house in the state of Rio Grande do Norte. Rio Grande do Norte is the first state down of Ceará. It's very common for transactions to occur near the city of Natal. Natal is the capital of Rio Grande do Norte. And this couple, they bought a house, right? Like, so in one of our first meetings, I would say, listen, but do you really want to buy a house? Why don't you consider an apartment? Because I know they told me up front they don't plan to retire at the house. They just want to, have a place to travel during like the winter months in the U.S. And I said, listen, if you're going to have a house, you're going to need a whole network for protecting your house from burglars and like and this and that. And then they would ask, well, what about cameras that I can install? I said, listen, if you install cameras, people are going to steal the cameras, right? So just to these are the differences between a developed country like the U.S. and Brazil. In the U.S., you put cameras, people worry, oh, they are recording me, I'm not going to mess up with that house in particular. In Brazil, if you put cameras, your house is going to become more attractive because then the thieves, they want to say, oh, look, there is a camera over there. Let's steal the camera, right? So it sounds almost like a joke, but I'm highlighting that in our practice, like apartments are much easier for foreign citizens to keep, maintain, and most probably because of the same reasons, it's going to be easier for you to sell if you decided to sell the property in the future. And if it is a house, guess what? Like the buyer of this house, particularly if he's Brazilian or if he's not Brazilian, if he's a foreign citizen, he's going to, have an idea. All right, if I buy this thing, right, like what is precluding people from burglarizing the house, to break into the house and take whatever you have over there. It doesn't need to be a TV. People are going to, sometimes, if it's not a closed gate community, they're going to take, I don't know, like utensils, they're going to take, like kitchen stuff. It is what it is, right? I don't need to explain such dynamics. Brazil is a developing country. Economy is huge. Like Brazil is usually between the 10th and the 13th largest economy in the world, but there is a lot of problems in terms of distribution of the richness in our country. So there are people who are much richer than the riches from Europe and the US. They're like extremely rich. And unfortunately, there are people who are extremely poor, right? So this huge discrepancy is going to drive, and it's not the only reason, right? Like there is bad people because, even if they have money, they're going to still choose to steal. But we cannot deny that there is a problem with the distribution of income in Brazil. and that's one of the main reasons why there is such, a problem with, safety, like robbery and so on. So that's my answer for you, Jason. I strongly recommend an apartment. Okay. And regarding our fees, yes, like, I mean, when we see it's a clean transaction, usually we don't have a set price. We do have like a block of hours. We have two approaches, Jason, just as a heads up. One approach is like we sell a block of 4 hours, and with 4 hours, like if you want us to just take a look at the purchase contract, do some minimum due diligence, maybe review closing papers before you attend the closing. If you have an issue with the pricing or the purchase structure, we can discuss with the realtor. So sometimes people they choose to buy blocks of hours, so they just spend the money on what they want. While others, particularly if it is their first transaction in Brazil, they are gonna be better off if they hire our service for the entire transaction, and then you still remain in the driver's seat. You tell us what you want to accomplish, how you want to pay, but we basically take from there, interact with the realtors, with the sellers, with the bank for currency exchange. For the closing, we need to structure the closing with the cartório, with the registry. After the closing, there is the title issuance, and you want to make sure that a title is going to be issued. Sometimes people they hear such a thing and they say, "Well, but like, am I going to get the title anyhow?" Let me tell you something. In Sierra, right, there is, by the beach coast, there is a bunch of developers. They target foreign citizens all the time. Maybe one of you is gonna know this team of guys. I'm not gonna tell the name, right? But they are. They are in some type of trouble. They have been selling bungalows, like throughout the Sierra's coast, and they are not delivering what they're selling. Okay, they're not delivering what they're selling, and we have calls every single week, from someone who wants to sue, who wants to do this and that, and then like most of them, once they realize how difficult it is to have a successful lawsuit in Brazil, they are going to change their minds and try to work something out with the developer. And the minority, they say, listen, I don't mind. It's more a matter of principle than, anything else. So I want to sue these, bad players, right? In their words. So do not think that you're going to get what you're buying no matter what, particularly if it is your first time. There is one video, if you guys want to check later on, go to our website and type, actually is on YouTube, right? So you go to our YouTube channel and you just search for fraud. Okay, we have a video in which we describe, some of the main frauds existing in Brazil real estate, and which was something that was, very telling. Unfortunately, it is that I think we recorded this video in July of this year, and if I'm not mistaken, in June of this year, there was a criminal, a crime ring, right? They were specializing in deceiving buyers of real estate in the city of Rio de Janeiro, not elsewhere, just the city of Rio de Janeiro. They deceived approximately 300 buyers, okay? And I know it's so difficult to wrap your mind around this that we even added the links so you could see the news by yourself, right? Maybe you don't believe, say, well, there was another guy, he said, well, I think you guys are just scaring, the foreign citizen community just to sell your expensive services, right? And then, that's this person's opinion, but listen, the news about the fraud activity are out there. So if you go to our channel and you search for fraud, you're gonna see like the links for the news. So it wasn't us who were telling about the fraud. It's in the news. A single crime ring alone, they deceived 300 buyers in the city of Rio de Janeiro alone. And I guarantee if there is such a thing in Rio de Janeiro, there is such a thing elsewhere. So, yes, listen, I understand that sometimes people are pulling resources to buy the property of their dreams and there is not much left around. But if this money is important to you, like you should not be cheap on securing the representation, right? There is a price tag, and you kind of get what you pay when you are hiring legal services in Brazil. I know, some legal service providers they charge peanuts, right? But guess what you're gonna get? Like you think they are gonna answer your messages every time you send a message over WhatsApp? No, they're not gonna answer, right? Usually, they're gonna be happy to have you as a client when you're paying, and after that, you're gonna become a pain in the neck from their perspective, right? And this is not us. Like we work throughout the transaction, happy to be of assistance, and most importantly, get what you are buying in Brazil because we know that most of our clients they have worked like decades or more, to secure the money needed to buy a property in another country. So we need to give our best, and we need to charge for the services that we provide. All right, Jason, I hope that was enough of an answer. Let's see what else we have here in the chat. All right, so a follow up message from Captain Synth. Um, I've been to Brazil multiple times. I've seen the northeast of Brazil. It's very hot out there, that's true. Therefore, Rio de Janeiro, Barra da Tijuca is my preference. Understood. I entirely agree, Captain Singh. It's a matter of preference. Rio de Janeiro is undeniably, like probably the number one choice for foreign citizens in Brazil. Okay, and I completely understand. And yes, I'm aware of fraudulent transactions in real estate in Brazil. You are absolutely correct in saying this. That's Captain Singh again. I would definitely opt for experts as you guys are so much more experienced. I appreciate Captain Singh. Yes, listen, there is, like there are other options out there. I just recommend you make sure that whoever you're picking as a counsel has like good reviews, right? That's how you know that the provider has been taking care. Now, if you wanna schedule a consultation with us, that would be the next step, Captain Singh, and then we can work on your timeline and get you up to speed in your search. We have like partner real estate agencies. Like we don't get any commission from them. That's something I want to tell you. But we pick a few real estate agencies based on past service to our clients, right? So if we see that a real estate agency does a good job, particularly is not too pushy. We hate working with realtors who are pushy, which unfortunately are super common in Brazil. So that's the number one thing we pay attention to. Like if the realtor is really interested in getting the right property for the client, or if they're just interested in pushing something so the client is going to buy and they're going to get their commission, right? So that's the number one thing we pay attention to. And so when you have a consultation with us, we're gonna, based on your needs, we're gonna pick a couple of qualified real estate agencies, and we're gonna recommend these agencies again, not because we get anything from them, because we don't, but because we saw them working with past clients in a very professional and efficient manner. All right, let's see. We have a Charles Jones. Hello, late to the stream. So I will have to watch the replay. Thank you for showing up, Charles. Obrigado e Feliz Natal. Feliz Natal. Merry Christmas. His question is: how much land can a foreigner buy for non-compete use? Right. Yeah. So, Charles, you're asking about how much land you can buy, and you probably know that Brazil doesn't have any restriction if you're buying urban property. Okay. So if you happen to buy, let's say, in Fortaleza, in Manaus, or even Rio de Janeiro, buy a huge plot of land, and this huge plot of land happens to be considered urban, then good for you. You're going to be able to buy without any issues. However, if this plot of land is rural, and then that's a problem because then there are very strict limitations. And if you exceed these limitations, guess what? Brazilian law to make sure that nobody is going to be, defrauding the process. They're going to say that your ownership is going to be voided, right? So that's pretty extreme. But that's how the Brazilian government, decided to act to avoid foreign citizens buying rural land, right? Now, in terms of the allowed size, it's going to vary according to the municipality in which the rural land is located. So there is no straight answer, Charles, to your question. However, if you search, we have two resources for you. Okay, you can go to either our YouTube account and you can search rural land, okay? And we have a full video about buying rural land in Brazil. I am 99% sure that we have the links that you need to see if a land is within the allowed size or not. And these links should be in our YouTube video, okay? And we also have the matching content in our website. So if you go to oliveiralawyers.com and if you search for rural land, you're going to find this page, and this page is going to have a few links that are going to take you to the resources you need to have an initial idea about the type of property, the size of the properties you can buy in a specific area. Okay, but the easy answer, just to really make this point across, urban property, you buy whatever it's available. When it becomes rural, it changes dramatically. Then there is a bunch of strings, and like people wanna find workarounds. They wanna say, well, but what if I have a Brazilian wife? What if I am a legal resident? Here is my legal resident card. They come up with all types of attempts to, circumvent the limitations, but there is no such a thing. It doesn't matter if you're married to a Brazilian spouse, it doesn't matter if you are a resident. As long as you are a foreign citizen, there's going to be very specific and hard to overcome limitations on the type of rural land you're going to be able to buy. Okay, Charles, I hope that was helpful. Again, check our content on YouTube and on our website. They are going to help you a lot on this point. All right, Captain Singh, you guys are well versed in Brazilian laws. It makes it easier and becomes, like legally binding, and this will avoid future problems. Appreciate Captain Singh. Appreciate your presence, your love of Brazil. We can easily tell. I know it's not the first time you're coming to our live streams. You are pretty welcome, and that makes me happy to be here on a December 24th. All right, guys. We've been here for over an hour now, and I appreciate you coming to our live stream. I see we still have a couple of questions. I'm gonna ask you to please, for instance, Brandy Jordan. It's one of them. Brandy, come to our live on Wednesday. Okay, we're gonna have that's gonna be our last live stream of the year. It's going to be on December the 27th, right? We always have our live streams on Wednesdays and Sundays. We're not going to have a live stream on the 31st, although we are having a live stream today, the 24th, but we're not going to have one on the 31st. But Brandy Jordan, Captain Singh, Jason Harris, Amhad, and all the foreign citizens who come, to make our live streams more interesting. I really appreciate your participation. I invite you to come here on Wednesday, the 27th, which is going to be our last live stream for the year. And of course, the following week, we're going to be together on January the 3rd. Okay, this is going to be our next live stream after this one on December the 27th. And I'm going to be happy to address topics of your interest and to have your presence to make our live streams more interesting. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Merry Christmas. Have a blessed time with your family and friends, and see you next week.